Welcome to NewsNation's Backscroll, where we look back at our major news coverage on the most important topics and personalities of our time.
And I want to start with Tania Wallace, who claims she's been at a freak-off and said she saw children, and it was hard for her to say it.
It was very hard for her to say it, Ashley. So what she said was that she was flown out from LA to Miami by the Saudi prince. And they ended up eventually on Star Island at one of Diddy's parties. She says, you know, among many other things, I mean, she goes into detail. This, she says, happened in 2018. She says that she walked into the house and there was a cluster of adults around what she described as little people. And they were dressed up as Japanese Barbies. I forgot the name. It's Harak something. You can help me out here. It's a certain type of Barbie. Anyway.
I know the name, but I've forgotten it. But go ahead.
So she explained that that they were just clustered around these little people. And I kept pushing her. And she eventually said, look, they are little people who should not be at an adult party. And I pushed her, and it was apparent what she was saying is they were minors. Now, she didn't see anything specific that was going on with them other than that adults were kind of huddled around them. But she told just a wild story about what was going on at the house, even at 7 in the morning, that this thing apparently raged all night long.
You know, it's amazing. TMZ always gets such great scoops, and this one might be one of your best as well. You got a hold of one of the freak-off tapes. Your producers have seen it. The description is, and I'll quote, "It's porn directed by Diddy himself." And a male sex worker really sort of walks through what happened in the experiences that he had. They didn't sound illegal, but they sure seem to comport with a lot of the other stories that have been told.
Yeah. So the this was a threesome. What you would ask me about earlier about Tania Wallace, she said there were more than 100 people at that party, including at least 4 celebrities. But this, what you're talking about now, was a threesome, and that's something that the U.S. attorney even referenced, and his lawyer in an earlier documentary we did. He was describing threesomes. He says it was all consensual. So yes, what we're told is that this male sex worker was flown out to various locations over a couple of years: Miami, New York, Los Angeles, and one other. And they would meet in hotel rooms, and Diddy would often watch as he would have sex with this woman who was associated with Diddy. So that seems to be what the feds are looking at right now in terms of alleged sex trafficking, if they are transporting somebody and perhaps paying them to cross state lines. That could end up being part of sex trafficking. Now, we know that this guy got a subpoena, and he ended up not testifying before the grand jury, but talking to prosecutors, and we're told that he left that tape with them.
And in fact, if he was transported, if he was even consensual in that setup, you're right, that is sex trafficking. It's classic federal crime to cross state lines for the purpose of selling sex. But it also comports just with the description of many of the other incidents that did sound illegal, where there was, you know, heavy intoxication involved in some of these incidents, but the setup sounded very similar. There was something else that was so revealing in your interviewing with 2 friends of Diddy's who seemed very defensive of Diddy. Stevie J, a producer and a friend, and Ray J, an entertainer and a friend of Diddy. No matter how many times you ask the question, both of them seemed to deflect. I never took part in any of it, and yet they were so close to him, and seemed to suggest that people, famous people, are paying off victims to keep their names out of the Diddy story.
Well, Ray J as much as said that to me. that he said that there were celebrities confiding in him that they were either approached by either the man, woman, or their lawyer, or they actually went to the person themselves and offered money for silence. That's what Ray J is saying. Now, I will say that we interviewed Tony Busby as well. He is the Houston lawyer who is representing more than 120 alleged victims. And he told me that, yes, they have sent demand letters out to various other people, high-profile people, it's essentially an ultimatum. Either pay up or we're going to sue.
And so I need to give you a massive flashing red warning here. What I'm about to say is quite disturbing. There's a lot of uncomfortable language. And if you are triggered or upset by sex assaults and violent assaults, etc., then this is definitely not the show for you tonight. The accuser is named Ashley Parham, and she has agreed to allow her name to be made public. Let's be real clear about that. She is going public with her name. She says that in February of 2018, she met a man named Shane Pierce at a bar, and that Shane FaceTimed Diddy outside on the sidewalk, apparently trying to impress her. But Ashley Parham says that she told both Shane and Diddy on FaceTime that she wasn't impressed. And this is important. She says she believed that Diddy had something to do with the murder of Tupac Shakur and said as much. Allegedly, Diddy warned her that she would pay for saying something like that. So let's just fast forward now to a month later, where she says this guy Shane invited her to come to his apartment. And the lawsuit says, quote, plaintiff and defendant Shane then began to watch a movie, and defendant Shane offered her a glass of water, which he retrieved and brought back to the plaintiff. A few minutes later, Ashley Parham says that P. Diddy showed up with an entourage, including his top aide, Christina Coram, an unnamed woman who is not a defendant in the suit, and 3 unnamed men, one of whom she says was Diddy's driver, and Parham says that that driver waited outside throughout the whole of what I'm about to tell you. Parham says that Diddy was antagonistic from the start and that he put a knife to her face. And now this is where I start reading directly from the complaint. Defendant Shane then partially undressed plaintiff, and then defendant Diddy removed the remainder of plaintiff's clothing, removing the knife from her face, and then retrieved a bottle of liquid from a large fanny pack. Defendant Diddy then squirted a bottle of liquid on plaintiff, which placed her in fear that she was being squirted with a chemical substance like acid. Plaintiff soon realized the substance was an oil/lubricant. Plaintiff was squirted with this liquid substance all over the entirety of her naked body. Defendant KK was then told by defendant Diddy to insert what looked like a syringe from sterile packaging into plaintiff's vagina. Defendant KK did as told, and then told defendant Diddy that she was unable to use the IUD because it had prematurely been released from its packaging, and an IUD is a birth control device. Defendant Diddy, upset by this, took the so-called syringe from defendant KK and tried inserting it into plaintiff's vagina instead. Defendant KK and Diddy began to argue as defendant KK continued to advise defendant Diddy that since the IUD had been prematurely released from its packaging, there was no way they could insert it into plaintiff's vagina effectively. After some time, defendant Diddy heeded the advice of defendant KK and removed the syringe from plaintiff's vagina and handed it to defendant KK. Defendants KK and Jane Doe then exited defendant Shane's residence, leaving the plaintiff alone with defendants Diddy, Shane, and Doe's number 1 and 2. Defendant Diddy then picked up a television remote that was near to plaintiff and violently inserted it into plaintiff's vagina. Defendant Diddy, while violently raping plaintiff with a television remote, told plaintiff that her life was in his hands and that if he wanted, he could, quote, take her, and she would never be seen again. Plaintiff began hysterically crying from the threats by Diddy, along with the pain of being violently, vaginally raped by defendant Diddy with the television remote, as well as the lingering pain from the ordeal with the IUD syringe insertion. Defendant Diddy then instructed defendant Shane to turn plaintiff on her stomach, seemingly tired of hearing plaintiff's blood-curdling cries. Defendant Shane then grabbed plaintiff by her abdomen and hips and turned plaintiff on her stomach. Defendant Diddy then instructed defendant Shane to put a pillow over her head because he didn't want to see her face or hear her cries, and instructed defendant Shane to anally rape plaintiff. Defendant Shane did as he was told by defendant Diddy and began to anally rape plaintiff. Defendant Diddy then violently raped plaintiff anally after defendant Shane. Defendant Doe number 2 then joined defendants Diddy and Shane, taking a turn anally raping plaintiff. Immediately after defendant number 2 raped plaintiff, he exited defendant Shane's residence.
I also was just recently contacted by someone who wanted me to essentially represent them in the sale of one of the Diddy tapes. So, which I declined that because...
Wait a minute, say that again. Say that again, back up. You're saying that there's tapes and they're being shopped?
Yes, there have been people already shopping.
We've heard about the tapes, but
yes.
The shopping thing is
yes,
new.
There already have been tapes leaking around Hollywood, being shopped around to individuals in Hollywood. But one particular person contacted me to shop a particular video they were in possession of, and to contact the person who was in the video to see if they were interested in purchasing the video before it became a public knowledge.
I've heard this before, so like a catch and kill.
Catch and kill, correct.
Wow, can you, and I guess you can't reveal the person who is on
No,
this
I can't
tape.
explain who the person was, but Mr.
High profile?
Mr. Combs was in the tape, and this other person is, I would venture to say, more high profile than Mr. Combs.
Really? Really? And you've seen it? Or
I've seen stills of the video.
Okay.
So
you can verify
that it exists, that it's real, that the other person in the video is very visible. It's no question if it's that person in the video, and I can tell the video is pornographic in nature.
Oh my, all right. So we know that he videotaped a lot of activities at his home, did he? And it sounds like there was probably a lot of hidden cameras as well. Is that what is being talked about?
Yes, this was actually in his Atlanta home, at a home he had in Atlanta at one point. And it does seem that the person isn't like looking into the video, so it's, to me, doesn't seem like that person knows they're being videotaped. It doesn't seem like they're active participant in the videotaping, like they're being surreptitiously recorded it.
Mm-hmm. All right. I wanted to ask you about the police report we talked about, but when your client came out, obviously the neighbor knew. Did she talk to her family? Did she talk to her friends? Did she have another lawyer? Let's go back to your client.
So at the time, she, as most rape victims are, they feel a lot of shame.
Absolutely.
And they don't want to vocalize what happened to them because then it makes it real. So they kind of internalize it and get over it. Mm-hmm. And due to the high profile nature that it was Mr. Combs who did this, she was afraid for her life. She was concerned that if she was to come forward and say something, that no one would believe her, because we're talking about 2018 when Mr. Combs was still pretty much at the height of his career, still very much so an icon and influential figure. Mm-hmm. So she's just a young girl from Northern California who's gonna believe that he had done something to her like this. So she didn't tell anybody. She did not hire an attorney. All she did was make the police report in the hopes that maybe the police would try to investigate and come up with anything. But she said she kind of felt from the police that they were disregarding what she was saying, even without saying Mr. Combs' name. So she didn't feel any confidence that revealing his name would have done anything.
Sure, sure. I mean, but there's a police report.
Yeah.
I mean, that fact in of itself is a big deal, because when you're talking about going back in time and talking about these allegations from other alleged victims, you know, there's not a lot of police reports, but you guys actually have one. And is that going to be revealed? Are we going to be able to see it?
Yes, as soon as I file my lawsuit in civil court, I will be attaching the criminal complaint that was made. I'll attach the number so everyone can see that this is a real number and can go to the police department there and request their own copy of that police report that was made back in 2018.
Well, that's going to be a huge deal when it happens, obviously, so we want to follow up on that. Did Mr. Combs have any reaction? Do you know if he was interviewed? I mean, he was named in the police report?
I don't think so. Based on what she said, she really felt that the police were trying to bury this and disregard her claims and not really investigate, which is another reason why a lot of victims don't report these things to the police. We have to address the elephant in the room is that we have victims, especially women, who go to the police who are typically men who don't actually investigate these things. They victim blame, they victim shame, and women don't feel safe or even protected to even make these claims because they don't think they'll be taken seriously, nor will their claims be investigated.
Right. Well, your client should be proud of herself for filing that claim and making that call and going for help because that's a huge deal. And of course, these are allegations. We want to say that. What was it like for you when you got this phone call, when you realized what you were going to be stepping into?
After talking to her, I just wanted to protect her. I just wanted to help her. She seemed as somebody very broken by this experience. And it was very concerning for me to hear her saying these things and expressing this very deep trauma associated with what happened to her. I just wanted to make sure that, number one, she was heard and we can get her voice to the masses, and maybe Mr. Combs will actually, like right now we're starting to see, will actually face some type of consequences for what he's done.
So in May of 2018, a man named Jonathan Odie opened fire at Donald Trump's Miami golf course and was shot and arrested by police. Now, Odie said that he was in the middle of a bipolar episode. That's where it gets interesting. Later, while being questioned by Florida authorities, Odie brought up something totally unexpected. He claimed that he'd been a sex slave for Sean Diddy Combs and Cassie Ventura. This video is courtesy of Real World Media. Take a look.
I had sex with Cassie and Sean. Basically, he would masturbate and tell me what to do with Cassie. I had like 15 encounters, and I heard lots of business. Because what they would do is Sean talks a lot on the phone and on the TV with speakers and stuff, and I was like a sex slave.
So at the time, Odie's story seemed too far-fetched to believe, but not anymore. And now, in an exclusive interview, Odie opens up to NewsNation senior producer Allison Weiner about his claims, beginning with why he's agreed to talk now. Listen to this.
I felt bad because I got along well with her, and I think she's a decent person. And unfortunately, I had a suspicion that she was in a situation that she was in, but I wasn't sure. And now I understand what was going on in her life and what was happening. And him beating her up in the hotel shows me the type of individual he is, and confirms that everything that happened to me was true and correct and in line with his personality.
So he's speaking to us from a Miami jail now. Here is how Odie says it all began for him.
I was a male Chippendale, a model Chippendale, you could say. And they called me for a show they called an agency that I work for to do a show. And then I went out to the show, and things led to them offering me more money to perform sexual acts. And that's it. That's how I basically got started. I get dressed like a police officer at the show, and they'll strip it down. And then, they offer me some more money. They offered me some more money to do some extra stuff.
So Odie did get specific about the extra stuff that he says Diddy wanted from him, and these specifics were consistent with what he told law enforcement during the 2014 interrogation. Here is how he describes the atmosphere and how frequently it happened.
Candles, sensual atmosphere, lights off. He would sit in a corner in a sofa, watch and masturbate. and he'd say, he'd tell her, give her instructions what to do to me. Perform oral sex, rub baby oil, then he'd tell me rub baby on her, perform oral sex, and then have sex.
How many times did you have sex with Cassie?
Probably like 15 sessions.
And what did you get paid? How much?
It would be like 800 each time. Each act. But sometimes they'll call me twice. I'll leave, and then 3 hours later, they will call me, come back.
And so Odie claimed that the sessions were drug-fueled, and that his concern for both Cassie and himself led him to get one of their sessions on video. Listen to what he says about that.
Why did you decide to record or video?
Because after she passed out, I decided to record that. So in the event anything worse happened, like if she died, or anybody died, it will be on camera, it will be on video, what happened. So I wouldn't be responsible for any of that.
So you were beginning to worry about her doing drugs. I mean, like about her dying or him dying or somebody dying from the drugs, and that you would be held responsible. So you brought a video. You brought your phone?
No, I had a USB video memory stick done like spy shot, and I put it in the water on the table, in the living room table of the hotel downstairs. I just filmed it, and it had everything described, and it had her threatening me, but he was telling her what to say. We had an argument. When I left, I knew they were paranoid. So I wanted to guarantee my safety. So I texted him. I said, "Hey, if anything happens to me, I got evidence I've been with you." At the settlement table, there was a lot of irregularities. Okay, It was my first settlement. So they brought me in, and Diddy had a T-shirt with two men in ski masks pointing, making gun signs, okay? And it was black and white, and it had a red frame, okay? But that's the way he operates. He communicates, threatening you, like saying, I'm going to have you killed.
So Odie says to prevent the recording from going public, that's what he was just talking about, Diddy had him sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, in exchange for $5 million in hush money. This was in 2014. The Daily Mail ran a screenshot of what appears to be a signature page signed by Sean Combs and Odie. We have not been able to obtain the document or verify its contents or authenticity, nor have we been able to verify the existence of the video that you heard him talking about. Now, according to Daily Mail's report, the timing coincided with a spending spree by Odie of Florida real estate, and it also coincided with Odie's divorce. His ex-wife tells the Daily Mail that she found out about his windfall only after their split.
Basically, the day the incidents happened at Trump National Doral, I had to take a medication, and I'd been diagnosed bipolar, but I wasn't sure I was bipolar. And I had an episode, and basically, I've been taking medication every day. I've been stable. I had no issues in jail. I've done excellent behavior in jail. I feel I'm ready to come out to society and be a productive member of society.
All right, so Odie remains locked up in a Florida jail, still awaiting trial on charges of attempted murder, armed burglary, aggravated assault, and armed grand theft. Regarding the sex slave claims, we've reached out to Sean Diddy Combs' team for comment and have yet to hear back. And thank you to Allison Weiner for that interview. We'll continue to investigate all of that.
Whenever I have questions about what it's like on the inside, I call Larry Levine. He spent 10 years in federal prison, 10 holiday seasons, and now runs Wall Street Prison Consultants. His brand new book is Crimes That Never Happened, Beating Federal Conspiracies, which is available on Amazon and everywhere. And he's live with me now. Hey, Larry, it's great to see you. Happy holidays to you. I'm glad you chose the festive backdrop. Thank you for that. I want to ask you about refusing meals. Diddy is apparently refusing meals. I don't know if it's all of them, but he's refusing some of them, and he's been reportedly looking a lot thinner. Why would that be?
Maybe he doesn't like the cuisine, or maybe now that he's actually in a dormitory unit, he's not living in his cell. Well, he's living in the cell, but he's not in there all day long. Now he can buy items at the commissary, and because of that, he may be making his own food. He probably has access to a microwave oven, or maybe like boiling hot water, and they make burritos and different things. He doesn't want to eat the prison food, I suppose, because he's scared somebody's going to put something in it. I've said this before. That's the way to get to this guy. Poison his food, turn him off like a light switch, and he can't testify against anyone.
That's so distressing to think that someone has to worry about their food being poisoned because of the kind of case they're in. But ever since Jeffrey Epstein, everybody has every theory left, right, and center. What about the goodie bags? I talked to two guys earlier in the show who said they never got anything when they were in lockup. Okay. But you've had that. You've gotten stuff in lockup.
I was at 11 different federal prisons. A couple of them were contract facilities, but they were still federal institutions. Every BOP facility I was ever at, we got a holiday bag. It's like a big plastic bag loaded with this garbage in it, like 2 days before
Hold it up
Christmas.
higher. Wait, hold it up a little bit higher because we got a banner on the bottom of the screen. I want everyone to see it. What's that?
This is pretzels. This is
like it says,
like peanut butter crackers. Here we got some cookies. I mean, there's all kinds of garbage. And the BOP plays a game with this. You know, they have a trust fund that they take money away from the inmates, or they make a profit on for selling commissary throughout the year. They act like they give you this gift bag, which is complete BS. That money that the gift bag is supplied, it comes from the trust fund. So the inmates are essentially paying for their own gift bag. Now, the ironic thing is, and I did a whole bunch of Christmases in the BOP, the bag shrinks and gets smaller every year.
What else was in it? I saw those three things. Like, what else would be in a goodie bag for the ones that do get it?
We've got some nuts. We've got the pretzels. We've got corn nuts. We've got a knockoff candy bar I've never heard of before. Here's some potato chips. Here's the cookies again. I mean, there's like 7 or 8 items in there. Some of them are garbage, but the inmates use this as currency. They trade among each other, and the inmates use it when they're playing cards to pay off, you know, their gambling debts and such. So I've had really good holidays.
What's interesting, though, is you said, when we were talking earlier, you said they get like a bag of chips or a bag of pretzels, but they don't get name brand. They get very inexpensive. And then they mark them up 30%, and that's the trust fund that they put together. The profits go into a trust fund to pay for the goodie bags later on in the year.
Well, it's like the shrink. There's certain employees of the Bureau of Prisons that the trust fund pays for. So essentially, the inmates are paying for the salaries of BOP staff members. It's crazy. And then when the inmates want things, they say, well, we don't have money for that. They used to hand out holiday cards for the inmates, but it turns out they were charging us for them, and the Salvation Army donated those. So everything you hear and see is a hoax. It's all a hoax. They lie to the inmates.
I feel bad.
They take advantage of them.
People like to crap all over inmates and say to hell with them, they're in there for a reason. But I think they're doing their time, and it's hard to be in there. So I don't think they need to have any additional, punishment. I'm all for giving them a little bit of a break now and again. Larry Levine, Happy holidays to you. Thank you for that beautiful backdrop.
In New York City, with the first day of testimony in Sean Diddy Combs' federal sex crimes trial. After seating a jury of 8 men and 4 women, the prosecution delivered its opening statement, and they came out swinging. Prosecutor Emily Johnson said the public knew Diddy as a larger-than-life business mogul, but behind the scenes, he was forcing women into sex, using violence and drugs to keep them in line. She said Combs had an inner circle that helped him commit sex crimes, drug crimes, other crimes, things like arson and kidnapping. And then came the graphic details from what we now know are called the freak-offs, where Diddy allegedly recorded sexual encounters that he'd arranged between paid escorts and his alleged victims, including his former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. Now, the feds say Diddy once forced an escort to urinate on Cassie. That came out in court today. When it was the defense's turn, they didn't deny Diddy's temper. They said, yes, he can be violent. They admitted that. Remember, that's not what he's on trial for. They said, yes, he's got anger issues, and his actions might warrant domestic violence charges. It was clever that they said that. But trafficking and racketeering, again, that's what the federal case is about. The defense says those don't apply. And all that freak-off sex, according to the defense, they say it was consensual. They said that Diddy's love of baby oil, and this was actually a quote, they said the love of baby oil was not a federal crime. Cassie Ventura did not take the stand today. She is expected to be there tomorrow, and she'd better soon. This is another very interesting part of all of this. She is about to give birth to her 3rd child any minute now, and she's about to get on the witness stand, about to have a baby. Another twist. 2 witnesses were called today, including a former security officer at the hotel, where Diddy is seen on video attacking Ventura brutally. You remember that video back in 2016. The prosecutors played the video. The witness testified that Diddy tried to pay him off with a giant wad of cash. The day's second witness was a male escort. This is where it really got very juicy, who says that he was paid by Diddy numerous times to have sex with Cassie while Diddy sat there in the corner masturbating and watched. He says he once saw Diddy throw a liquor bottle at Cassie and heard him beating her in another room. In court today for all of this was Lauren Conlin. That's the host of the hugely popular true crime podcast, The Outlier, and Pop Crime TV on YouTube. There she is. There's Lauren. Also joining me now, NewsNation national correspondent Caitlin Becker, who has also been all over the story. I want to start with you, Lauren, though, because I am so intrigued by what it must look like and feel like inside that courthouse. With these federal cases, we don't get to see anything, just those very weird, like, cartoonish sketches. What was it like in court? What's it like with Diddy's family there? Apparently he was blowing kisses at the kids. Sort of describe the mood for us.
Yes, Brian, it's wild. Let me tell you, Diddy did appear nervous at first. He asked the judge for a little bit more water, but then you're right. He blew kisses to his mother in the front row. He seemed to give a thumbs up at one point. At another point in time, he was flipping through a Bible, reading a Bible. And if you'll notice, he's wearing these crew neck sweaters, this light color, which I think is pretty smart as a defendant, but he's kind of reminding me of a Menendez brother here. You know, it's really interesting how defendants are dressed. I always make sure to pay attention to that. And additionally, his mother, Janice Combs, she walked into the lobby this morning looking incredibly somber, like she was dressed for a funeral. All black suit, black bag. It sounds like she got the memo here. But we'll get into it, Brian, I'm sure. But there was a lot of things today in court. I could not believe what I was hearing. I was incredibly uncomfortable. And yeah, in the government's opening statement, Emily Johnson actually said that Cassie did choke on the urine of an escort when Diddy forced this escort to allegedly urinate in her mouth. They did say inner circle numerous times, I believe, really trying to amplify the RICO charges. Diddy couldn't have done all of these crimes without his inner circle, right? Without his bodyguard, without his driver, without his assistant. They talked about alleged kidnappings, that one time he kidnapped his assistant to go and try to find Cassie when he thought Cassie was cheating. I mean, it was wild. I feel like I could go on forever, but I won't.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, the details are gross, and I think it's only going to get worse for you, Lauren, having to be in there. They start talking about the urination. I can only imagine where it's going to go from here. Caitlin, what about Cassie? I mean, a lot of people thought we were going to see Cassie today. You saw the photo. She is 9 months pregnant. Is she expected tomorrow? Sort of what's the plan?
She is, Brian. She's the third witness on the prosecution's witness list. We're going to have about an hour of redirect and recross tomorrow morning with the escort who was on the stand at the end of today. And then Cassie will take the stand. Her testimony is expected to go for the rest of the week. As you can see, she is extremely pregnant. So they're going to be doing her testimony slightly differently. They're going to be doing it in 90-minute increments so that she has breaks in between there to kind of rest, recover, use the bathroom if she needs it. I mean, like you see, she's very, very pregnant there, so they're going to handle it a little bit different. But this was actually a point of contention early on in the proceedings today because they were trying to decide whether or not, because of her condition, if they wanted her to be seated in the witness stand before the jury came in or to have her walk in. And then, the two attorneys on each side were kind of butting heads about that, having questions about whether or not it would be too prejudicial to have her already sitting there, or if it would be beneficial to have her walking in, if it would influence the jury if they saw how pregnant she was when she was walking. So there were some questions about that early on in the proceedings today, Brian, but we do expect to see her tomorrow and her testimony to, like I said, last throughout the week. So they're going to get in. I mean, we thought it was graphic today. It's going to become extremely graphic and extremely hard to hear once she is on that witness stand.
Yeah, and I'm going to get to the fact that she's 9 months pregnant and the impact that could have on the trial in a second with our legal panel. Because think about that. I mean, that's a visual there for the jury. She's going to get up on the stand about to have a baby. There's sympathy there. How does that play? And we're going to get to that in a second. But Caitlin, Cassie's husband, Alex Fine, was he spotted in court today? I mean, has he been in and out of the courtroom?
We saw him today walking in. He sort of slipped in during the lunch break when all of Diddy's kids and his mom were coming in and out of court. You see him walking in there. Our producer, Ava, happened to have been walking in at the exact same time as he was. So we were kind of expecting to maybe see Cassie today, but he went into the courthouse and tried to go into the courtroom proper, to sit in the same room where Diddy is being tried, but was escorted out. And then he actually listened to a good chunk of the proceedings from one of the overflow rooms where a lot of the media has to be. So he was in there today. Like I said, Cassie not in there today, and I don't anticipate us seeing her walk in, Brian. I mean, we have photographers and cameramen all over the outside of this courthouse hoping to see her as she goes in, but because of how pregnant she is, I would not be surprised if they took her in a different entrance so that she didn't have to walk through the throng of media outside.
Lauren, tell me a little more about this male escort, the vibe that you got from him. What does he actually look like? Because all we've seen, again, are the very cartoonish, courtroom sketches. Did you find his testimony believable? Obviously, some of the stuff he said, I mean, the fact that Diddy's in the corner masturbating, he's having sex with Cassie. What did you make of it?
Yes, I found his testimony to be incredibly believable. He seemed genuinely affected by what he saw happen to Cassie. This man truly seemed to care about Cassie. He did have, whatever you want to call it, some kind of relationship with her for probably about 1.5 years. And he actually testified that he, at a certain point, wasn't able to perform for Diddy and Cassie. He got erectile dysfunction because of what he saw. He said he saw Diddy at one point after an encounter drag Cassie by the hair from her computer seat all the way back to her bedroom while she was kicking and screaming and crying. And after she apologized and came out, he said that Diddy said, okay, you guys want to continue? And he couldn't perform. And that was it. From there, he could not perform after that. And he saw Diddy abuse Cassie 2 or 3 more times after that as well. And this is a muscular guy. He was 41 years old, a bit smaller, but again, he seemed incredibly affected by what he saw.
And was there, just quickly, Lauren, was there a point where he talked about, because I was trying to follow the blogs, again, it's hard, you were in there, it's difficult for us on the outside. Did he talk about Cassie at one point being under the influence of drugs to the point that she was slumped over and Diddy still wanted him to have sex with her?
He did talk about that. He said that he showed up one night and Cassie appeared to be high on something and she was slumped over on the couch. But he said that Diddy said, I don't think it's going to happen tonight. I think a lot of things seem to get twisted based on what everyone is hearing. And because we can't have phones or laptops in the courtroom, everyone's taking notes. So yeah, certain things are a little bit different, I guess, on each news outlet. But I specifically noted here, Cassie was too messed up on something that night. So they could not go through with the alleged freak off.
Yeah, well, listen, I bet your hand is tired from taking notes all day. I know who that is when they don't allow the laptops or the phones in. We're not used to it. Lauren Conlin, appreciate you very much. Caitlin Becker, as always, thank you. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow night. Get some sleep.
Thanks.
Okay, let's get to our panel now. I'm joined now by Trent Copeland, trial lawyer and legal analyst, and also Joe Tacopina, a defense attorney who says he was invited to join Diddy's legal team but said no. Joe, I want to start with you. Again, you were asked to be on the team. What do you make of this defense that came out today in the openings, basically saying, yes, Diddy is morally wrong, but none of this is actually against the law. It was consensual?
That's what this all comes down to. I mean, this case comes down to one issue at the end of the day, consent. Was this an issue of consent? Was it not? I mean, did these people consent to being there? Look, everyone wanted to be at a Diddy party. Everyone wanted to be part of these Diddy parties and be in his orbit when he was Diddy. Now, when someone got paid a lot of money, and now there's a federal investigation, everyone is looking to get a payday. All of a sudden, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, how many ever years ago it was, a decade ago, they weren't consenting. They realize now it wasn't consensual. I have a hard time with that. I'm not saying this case is a walk in the park, but I've read articles here about how Diddy is cooked, and this case is a fait accompli. Not by a long shot. This case will come down to an issue of consent, and I got to tell you, I know for a fact, and you mentioned I dabbled a little bit in deciding whether I was going to join the team or not. I know for a fact they have text messages that will refute a lot of these issues that the prosecution's holding out as far as these people not consenting. I know they do, and I know there's going to be text messages that will refute the issue, the fact that people saying, "Oh, I didn't consent," or "I didn't want to be there." Those messages, unless an alien sort of invaded their body or took their phone and created those text messages, are not going to be helpful to the credibility of these witnesses.
So, Joe, they asked you to be on the team. I'm just curious why. I mean, it's a big case. I think it'd be pretty exciting. Why did you decide not to do it?
There's a lot of reasons. I'm not going to get into that now. I mean, I've discussed it multiple times, but it was a lot of reasons, personal reasons, timing reasons. I just got off a big trial in LA for 6 weeks with ASAP, Rocky, and just there was a whole host of things. A lot of it was a timing issue. A lot of it was business decision, and that's it. I said nothing against Diddy. I met with him several times. I think he has a very defensible case, a very tribal case. When you see in federal court, and I've been in federal court hundreds and hundreds of times, an opening statement that talks about urination and baby oil in the prosecution's opening statement as being the crux of the opening statement. I mean, I just never thought I'd see that day. And that's what we had today. We had an opening statement and the evidence in large part talking about urination, sex, not rape, but sex, baby oil, escorts. It's just things that you would never imagine hearing in a United States District Court. That's what we heard today, and that was a large part of the testimony of the day.
Well, I remember, Joe, when the charging documents first came out, when all this went down, it was all about the baby oil. Remember, they talked about, I forget, it was like hundreds or thousands of bottles of baby. I mean, that was a big part of this. Yeah, that was a big part of this from the beginning. Trent, I want to go to you. Joe talked about the fact that it was a female prosecutor who gave the openings, but it was also a female defense attorney, Tenny Garagos. I'm assuming, Trent, that's by design.
Of course, it's by design. The reality is this is a case about sexual assault, sexual violence, and having a woman, whether you're the prosecutor or the defense, speaking first to the jury conveys to them a sense of understanding, a sense of compassion, a sense of, here's a woman, but the prosecutor side, who's telling the story about a woman or women who've potentially been abused. And from the defense perspective, their view is if we put a woman up front and center and she tells the story for Diddy, she operates as his attorney, as his spokesperson, as his mouthpiece, then that really will more likely than not resonate to the jury in a way that having a man say the same thing wouldn't. And so look, and by the way, and I always good to see my friend Joe, but Joe says he's surprised about what he heard in this case. The reality is I'm surprised too, everyone is, but we shouldn't be because it's a case about a criminal enterprise dedicated towards sex and appealing to the very basic sexual appetites of Diddy. And there's no way we're going to have this trial, and there's no way we're going to not hear about baby oil. There's no way we're not going to hear about all of the abuse and the urination if we don't talk about those things. So, yeah, we're going to see this. This may be one of one, but it's all important. It's all necessary. And I don't regard what the prosecutors did today as being extra, as being surplusage. I think what they did today was paint the picture exactly what this case is and what it's all about in all of its graphic detail.
Oh, I agree with that, by the way.
Tomorrow,
Trent's right on. I agree with that. I just am still shocked that this case is in a federal district court. I agree with, based on this case, they have to say that stuff. But I still can't believe this is a racketeering case in the United States District Court. That's what I can't believe.
Totally.
Tomorrow, Joe's going to be a big day, obviously, with Cassie set to take the stand. 9 months pregnant. You saw the photo. They're already making accommodations. She may take a break every 30 minutes or so. You know, if you're Diddy's defense attorney, that can't be good for them. I mean, she obviously is going to come across, I would think, more sympathetic. You almost feel sorry for her having to do this while she's that pregnant. I mean, how does that play into the defense strategy, Joe?
It's a fact. It's a fact she's pregnant. But, you know, it was Cassie who started all this. Let's remind the jury of that. I mean, it was Cassie who asked for $30 million for a manuscript of a book that she was going to write. And if she didn't get $30 million for her manuscript, she was going to print the book. And it was Cassie who then said, well, if you don't give me the money for the book, I am going to sue you unless you give me $30 million. And so it was Cassie who never went to the police. But made all these demands. And then when she didn't get what she wanted, she sued and then got $20 million. Still have not yet gone to the police at that point. So, you know, I think you could remove the veneer of being a nice pregnant lady. I'm not saying she's not a nice lady. I don't know her at all. She could be a very nice lady. And of course, anyone who's pregnant has a sympathetic, you know, sort of veneer on them, right? But let's be real. You know, she was a part of this. And she enjoyed and reaped the benefits of it. I'm not saying the disgusting things he did to her are excusable. If I were the defense, I would be more aggressive condemning the acts of Combs against her, the domestic violence acts against her, than the prosecution is. I would be more aggressive, but that is not what this case is about. This is not a racketeering case, not sex trafficking. That is a domestic violence case. And it's a bad and despicable act, but it's not sex trafficking. It's not racketeering. And they have to be very upfront with that and show that that's trying to replace the void where the evidence should be. They're using that tape to sort of replace the void where the evidence should be by appealing to emotions. Because that tape is horrific. It's horrific. And so I don't know. I understand she's pregnant and all that stuff. The jurors are smart. They're going to listen to that. Okay, they're going to feel sympathetic for her, but at the end of the day, they're going to value her credibility. And when the defense shows her a text message the day after an incident where she's now going to say, I didn't want to be there. I hated being there. He forced me to be there. And the day after, she sends a text message contemporaneously saying, thank you for last night. It was amazing. You know, you're an amazing man. It's going to be tough for her to explain that, I think.
But do you think, Trent, that the jury will see through that in the sense that relationships are complicated, abusive relationships are complicated? I think most people know that. You can be abused and then the next second be sending a text that says, I love you because you like the rich lifestyle, but you're also being abused.
No, I think that's right. And two things can both be true at the same time. Look, here's the first thing. Cassie Ventura walking into that courtroom pregnant and then testifying about a previous trauma, while it doesn't prove anything, and Joe's correct about that, it is not a factual piece of evidence or simply walking into the courtroom, but optics matter. Optics matter, Brian. And when she walks in that courtroom with all her vulnerabilities as a very, very pregnant woman, talking very emotionally about what was a past trauma, believe me, it will matter to the jury. And by the way, the video, and Joe's right, the video again, this isn't a case about domestic violence. This isn't a case about what happened in that horrific video. What this is about power, control, and abuse, and that's what the video shows. And the video demonstrates that this wasn't just an isolated incident, it was an ongoing issue for Diddy.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.